So, witness, please state your name and occupation for the court.
Yishn Mikotoba, lecturer in forensic medicine at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo, Japan.
Oh damn, I forgot her voice. And Professor Mikotoba, the young lady beside you is...
This is Dr. Maria Gore. Scotland Yard's practicing coroner, the daughter of Dr. Scythe, I understand.
Yes, Dr. Scythe.
I'm afraid I can't tell you why she's here, she just appeared.
Okay. You summoned the strange Japanese man as a witness to that autopsy. But you don't summon Mama. That makes no sense. She was there too. Oh, she was? Right. But your mama is like in the cahoots with Lord Strongheart.
That's about the size of it. I've had her eyes boring into the side of my cheek constantly whilst I was here in the antechamber too.
Poor man, the idea of it's making me shudder.
A revelation about Dr. Scythe that came to light some days ago defiled the reputation of the entire judiciary.
She was therefore deemed unfit to appear as a witness in today's proceedings. The Ministry of Justice's decision on that is final. Well, we wouldn't want any more perjury to be committed, would we? The Ministry of Justice? Some questionable strings are being pulled, I think. I remember you, Dr. Mikotoba, but I certainly never expected to be meeting you under these circumstances.
Yes, it's been a long while, Lord Strongheart.
The prosecution understands that you were a visiting student of forensic science in London until 10 years ago.
That's right, I studied under Dr. Wilson at St. Sinners.
So you were present at the autopsy of my brother, Lord Clint von Zeeks?
I was, yes. I assisted Dr. Wilson with the entire procedure.
Mama is far more skilled than any Japanese man.
Well, Dr. Wilson asked me to be his primary assistant on that occasion.
And this autopsy report was actually penned by you, I believe?
Yes, I noted all of the doctor's findings, and when we were done, he read through the documents and signed it.
Poor Mama. A secondary assistant, she wouldn't have had such a good view of all the innards. That's what you were worried about? So, Professor, do you remember Inspector Gregson?
Yes, of course. If it wasn't for his insistence, Lord von Zeeks' autopsy would never have happened. But he was absolutely convinced that it would reveal decisive evidence against Genshin, you see. So Lord Strongheart had to entreat the nobility to allow it to take place. And do correct me if I'm wrong, my lord.
It was a result of that autopsy that a mass murderer was apprehended and justice was done. But Gregson admitted it before he was killed. He admitted that the results of the autopsy were fabricated. You were there at the time, so you must testify. You have an obligation to tell the truth about what really went on.
Absolutely, that's precisely why I'm here.
And that's why I'm here too.
Very well then, you will give your formal testimony now, witness. But before you begin, a word of warning.
Oh? You will state truthfully and accurately what you saw and what you heard at the time.
I wouldn't dream of doing otherwise, my lord.
The moment your testimony verges on supposition, I will expel you from my courtroom. Remember that.
my own observations, I couldn't say there was any indication of the autopsy results having been fabricated. Death resulted from a wound made by a Western-style sword, transfixing the heart. That I found a little strange.
Western-style sword. Why did you find that strange? There were no other signs of internal injury, nothing questionable at all. It was just that beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach. Dangerous? Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. What is the thing? No indication. Nothing to suggest fabrication. Professor Mikotoba, are you certain about that?
Well, nothing that I could positively identify as such, much less swear to it in testimony.
Well, that clears things up nicely. Wow, is that his evil laugh? Oh my god, he looks so evil. The only fabrication here, Asugi, has come from you. What? You claimed the inspector confessed just before his death, but that is the fabrication. No, he freely acknowledged it, I swear he did. Freely, with the tip of a sword at his throat, the man was clearly at his wit's end. The court will give no credence to this confession that was uttered in obvious desperation. Oh my god, he does have a point. Quite simply, there was nothing questionable about the investigation of Claude Flint van Zieks' death. And with this testimony we have, without question, uncovered the whole truth of the matter.
If I may, my lord. There was most certainly something questionable about it, and the whole truth does rather elude us, I feel.
Then why didn't you say so?
I beg your pardon. Well, you're obviously aware of the facts of the case. All 4 of the professor's previous victims died when an enormous beast was set upon them that ripped out their throats.
Oh, such horrifying crimes.
But curiously, the killer's last victim, Lord Clint van Zieks, suffered a different fate.
Yes, you're right. He was stabbed through the heart with a sword.
That's enough.
I believe I warned you about this witness. I promised to curtail your testimony as soon as it entered the realms of supposition or speculation. Very well, my lord. In that case, the defense will pursue a conclusion to this during the cross-examination.
What?
I have the right to cross-examine every witness after testimony, and I fully intend to exercise that right. Ryunosuke, I'm afraid that even the presiding judge has no authority to contravene the letter of the law, as I'm sure every member of the judiciary present in the gallery would agree.
Very well, you may begin, counsel. However, the moment your arguments trace from the established facts, I will not hesitate to bring their cross-examination to an end. Proceed with caution.
Yes, my lord. From your own observations, no indication. Resulted from a wound made by a Western-style sword. A beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach. What the heck do you mean? What is the evidence and why have we been kept in the dark about this?
Hold it!
This whole time, deliberately by the game. What exactly was it though? What does beautiful but dangerous mean? Well, it was sparkly and round with a hole, as if it might slip over a finger perhaps.
It was a ring belonging to Genshin Asugi.
My father's ring was inside the victim's stomach?
And at the time, Genshin wore a large ring on the digitus quarters of his left hand, the fourth or ring finger. I'd understood it was some sort of keepsake.
Why did you put ring finger in quotes, quotation marks? When my father left Japan for London 16 years ago, I was 8 years old. But I remember that ring. You do? My father's possessions were sent to our family home in Japan after his death, but the ring wasn't among them. Obviously not. It was a key piece of evidence. It remains under lock and key in the stores at Scotland Yard to this day.
After the autopsy, Genshin was summoned by the police to check for the presence of his ring. It wasn't on his hand, of course. Moreover, there were deep abrasions on his finger when it had been pulled off. They arrested the man there and then, right before my eyes.
Oh, could they? I brought the ring. Along with me today. What? Here it is, a bit dusty from years in the stores. Wow, that's a very big ring.
Oh, good gracious, yes, that's it. I haven't seen that in 10 long years.
Wait, how did you get a hold of this? This vital evidence that is under lock and key at Scotland Yard? And that was found inside the victim's stomach.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
You hesitated there, Professor Mikotoba. Should we read something into that?
Well, it's just that thinking back now, I didn't actually witness the moment it was extracted from the victim's body.
Oh my, really?
At that precise moment, Dr. Wilson had asked me to fetch him a new scalpel, you see.
Dr. Gorey, the removal of historic evidence from the stores requires my consent, does it not? However it came to be here, the court cannot deny that this is crucial evidence for today's proceedings. Very well, you may submit it. The claws clasping the gem look sharp enough to cause a very nasty scratch. Oh, that's what she meant by dangerous. It's not the sort of ring normally seen in Japan. They almost look like claws protecting the jewel. Yeah, I was about to say, this looks very Western. If at all. Looks very fantasy, to be honest. It's huge! Is it just a large like this, or was it really that huge? These fat claws are doing a good job protecting the equally fat gemstone in the middle of this ring. Yes, if you were clumsy, you could give yourself a rather nasty cut on them, I should think. Ow! Now my finger's bleeding, the claws really are sharp. Oh my, that was very quick clumsiness, Mr. Naruhodo, even for you.
Who would make such a dangerous ring?
You couldn't swallow it without doing yourself some fairly serious damage, surely. A sticky mochi bun of about that size would go down much better with some red bean paste in the middle. Oh, I love mochi with red bean paste. Someone as clumsy as me would probably manage to choke on it somehow. Yeah, you don't say. I mean, yearly, people in Japan choke on mochi every year. It's not a low number, even. But still, they do it because it's traditional to eat mochi. when it's New Year. Besides, it's very delicious, so I couldn't forgo it. We must examine it very carefully, Mr. Naruhodo. Very carefully indeed. We just did? Wait, are you saying there's more? Am I not careful enough? There was only one thing I could have examined, right? I can examine? Only this one thing, right? There's nothing else suspicious, I don't think. That's everything, is it? Poor father, he looks so troubled. Perhaps because 10 years ago, something happened that's been weighing on his mind. Oh. I couldn't say were his words. That phrasing was very deliberate, I'm sure. I wonder if he's had his suspicions all these years. If that's the case, we need to use this cross-examination to prove what really happened and remove any trace of doubt. If we could establish that Kazuma-sama's claim of fabricated evidence was true, we can't shy away from this now. Even if what we might uncover could lead to total calamity. Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll be right beside you, whatever may happen. Why did you find that strange?
Hold it!
In all of the previous 4 killings attributed to the professor, the victims were killed by an enormous dog, I believe. Their throats were, well, mauled.
Correct, and yet Lord Van Zieks was stabbed.
Do you mean to say you think Lord Clint Van Zieks may not in fact have been one of the professor's victims?
There is no basis on which to doubt the findings of the investigations carried out at the time.
But
Genshin Azuki confessed to all of his crimes upon his arrest. He admitted to having taken the lives of all 5 members of the aristocracy.
Why would he do that though? Why would he confess to the crimes if he didn't do it?
The beast that was used to carry out the killings was never identified. No evidence was found to suggest that Genshin had ever kept a dog.
A true hound of hell. No other signs of internal injury.
Hold it!
But, you weren't actually present at the autopsy yourself, were you, Dr. Gorey? Does that matter? Well, I just wonder how useful your testimony can be in that case, really. I mean, it would be different if your mother, Dr. Scythe, were in the stand, but I've read all the paperwork about the case, and Mama's told me the story countless times. The statement I just made is exactly what's written in the autopsy report.
I did confirm that myself at the time, it's true. Besides the stab wound, there were no other signs of internal trauma.
I see. Mama told me all about it. Oh? She said there was nothing of note internally. But they did find an amazing piece of evidence, something unbelievable. Unbelievable? What do you mean? Come on, Dr. Gorey, what was it? It's the ring, right? Yeah. Maybe he swallowed it? Why would he swallow it, if not to identify his assailant?
Hold it!
And that was a decisive piece of evidence that led to Genshin Azuki's arrest? Correct. After further investigations by Scotland Yard, the man admitted to his crimes. That's a lie, my father was no killer. Baroque van Zieks, it was you. You twisted the truth to suit your purposes. Your hatred of me doesn't change the facts that were established 10 years ago. My brother Clint has closed in on the professor. In the end, he exposed the man and put a stop to his lethal rampage. Maybe he was killed by someone else. Someone who wanted to protect the professor. Why was he called the professor in the first place anyway? I forgot. Is that important? Okay, assuming the killer of Clint van Zieks is someone entirely different from the killers of the previous cases, professor cases, then that means Clint must have gotten really close in exposing the professor, right? So the professor killed him. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, the professor killed him. If someone else other than the professor killed him, why would they do that? To protect the professor? Why would they do that? In a way only a man of my brother's caliber could. Sorry about that. You couldn't say.
Hold it!
You couldn't say?
No, sadly not.
But then you couldn't say there wasn't any indication either, could you?
No, true, I couldn't. I was at Dr. Wilson's side as he performed the procedure, recording what he did. But at times, of course, he instructed me to fetch implements and such like. Whilst I was away from the operating table, obviously I could have missed something.
And at those times, what was the secondary assistant doing? Following this Japanese man's orders to adjust the lighting or pass him implements. But that doesn't mean Mama wasn't a vital part of the team.
Quite, yes. So, would you kindly refrain from staring at my cheek like that?
Professor Mikotoba, think. Was there nothing at all that seemed out of place to you?
Well, yes, there was, as a matter of fact.
Oh my goodness.
Hold it!
No. I mispressed. Yeah. Can we really point out a contradiction? Can we really do that? All we received was that evidence. Do we have a photo of... Oh, the photo where he protected Clint. No, I don't have it anymore. Damn. There was no photo, that was just a memory of Baroque, I guess. Okay, let me look at the papers. Any and all material possessions and wealth. He doesn't really specify what exactly. Single stab wound. Oh, scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand. What about the ink stains? I don't know about that. The ring looks something Clint would wear, honestly. Clint. I don't see his fingers, or the ring on his fingers at least, unfortunately. Or anything else that does not look like a ring, for that matter. Can we get rid of the evidence here? I am sure the Red-Headed League and Mr. Vigil is completely irrelevant now. Nothing that looks like the ring in this photograph. Is this the only thing that we have? Only photo that we have from Clint? Whoops. Yeah. Hold on. No other signs of internal injuries. Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. Are we saying that if he swallowed the ring, he would have had internal injuries? No other signs of internal injury besides a ring. Karma may come into play again. Oops, what? Can you please open it? Abrasions. I mean, if this was fake evidence, it means Clint did not swallow the ring, right? That means somehow Dr. Wilson got a hold of this ring before the autopsy. How did he do that? Maybe it's during that attack. Like, Baruch von Zieks told us that he was attacked. He and Genshin both were attacked by bandits or something. We do not have a photo of Genshin, unfortunately. Red ink. Where have we seen red ink before? Have we seen red ink before? The autopsy report? No. I have no idea. Should we just present Mr. Azuki's ring? On which statement though? No other signs of internal injury, maybe?
Objection!
The court has heard that the ring was extracted from the victim's stomach, but you didn't actually see it being removed, did you, Professor Mikotoba?
That's right. As I said in my testimony before, at that moment I was fetching a replacement scalpel that Dr. Wilson had requested.
In other words, you can neither confirm nor deny whether this ring, in fact, really came from the victim's stomach or not. What are you suggesting, counsel? That the ring was never in the victim's stomach to begin with. It's entirely feasible that Dr. Wilson fabricated that detail about the autopsy. What are you saying? That Dr. Wilson was in possession of the ring in advance, after it was somehow stolen from Mr. Azuki, and he produced it during the procedure, pretending to have found it there and then in the victim's stomach?
Objection!
Supposition at best. What possible evidence do you have to support such a rash claim? This evidence right here. That's the autopsy report. It's explicit in that report, counsel. Other than the ring, nothing unusual was noted internally, so I'm not sure how you intend to prove your point. You've already done it for me, my lord. The lack of internal injury says it all. What? To swallow a ring of this size would require considerable effort and determination. And in addition to its size, there are the sharp claws around the gemstone to contend with. My brother was a determined man, and on the brink of death even more so, I'm sure. He would have stopped at nothing to ensure that evil killer was brought to justice. But if he really had to swallow that enormous ring, it's inconceivable that no traces of its passage down his throat would have remained as internal trauma. No.
And there you've arrived at a sticking point. That's precisely why I had my doubts about the findings myself 10 years ago.
Then why didn't you say anything at the time?
I did. I still remember the conversation I had with Dr. Wilson in the laboratory that day. Look at this! Now this is a very curious thing to find in a man's stomach, wouldn't you say? But
oh, no, he was younger back then, right? But isn't that rather peculiar, Dr. Wilson? What's that now?
What's that now, Mikotoba?
Well, if he swallowed a ring of that size with those sharp metal claws that it has, surely you'd expect to see damage to the throat and esophagus, torn mucous membranes at the very least.
Dr. Mikotoba, may I remind you that I have vastly more experience than you?
I'm terribly sorry.
I can think of plenty ways of explaining why no injuries would be seen. Now, let's say this. The victim would appear to have ingested the item as evidence to identify his assailant.
Okay, that's an interpretation that goes far beyond the scope of a mere autopsy report.
Go ahead, write it down.
So I was right. Dr. Wilson deliberately fabricated the results of the autopsy to implicate my father. I'm disappointed, Counsel. That argument is nothing more than speculation. What? Dr. Wilson was Britain's leading authority on forensic science and autopsy work. There is no scientific basis on which to doubt the man's expert opinion.
Pardon the interruption, my lord, but damage to the mucous membranes of the throat is easily identified even in living subjects.
Using a device called an endoscope, recently demonstrated in practical use in France. Sorry about that. So it's a recent invention then? I want one. The government can pay. I don't think so. And Dr. Gorey, rest assured that your removal of evidence from the stores without permission will not go unpunished. We open up the dead to find the truth. I beg your pardon? But Mama, she chose to stitch her corpses up, with all her secrets inside. That's wrong. Dr. Gorey? It's looking as though she's chosen to walk a different path to her mama. Yes, the ring. What about the ring? I've just remembered something. An earlier incident. What incident? The one I recounted to you before, about a memory I have of Genshin Azuki saving my life. What? My father saved your life? It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets. All of a sudden... Don't make a peep, you...
Oh, don't make a peep, you're coming with us.
Look at that, the ring! But that's not evidence, that's his memory. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He'd shielded me. It was on the ring finger of his left hand that he used to wear that ring. Are you saying... I've always believed those thugs were after me. But now I'm starting to question if perhaps I wasn't the intended target after all. Wait, but... Genshin was arrested 2 days after that attack. And in that short interval, the decisive evidence needed to indict him was miraculously found. You mean the ring was stolen from him? You think that's what those thugs were after that night?
Objection!
You pathetic coward. You expect me to believe that you weren't involved? What do you mean by that? It was you, wasn't it? You were the one who took it. You stole my father's ring. You set the whole thing up so you could paint him as a mass murderer. Kazuma, open your eyes. Ryunosuke, you must know deep down. The truth can be completely obscured, even when your judgment is only slightly clouded. But at the moment, you seem to be floundering through a dense fog. Is that why you were so insistent I should be present in this trial? To see you like this? Whoa! When did our boy Ryunosuke become so sassy? Well, this is an amusing spectacle. What a grandiose expression on your face. As if you were Lady Justice herself. It seems you've thoroughly convinced yourself of this alleged fabrication of the autopsy results. So much so that you're apparently blind to the blatant contradiction that would be born out of it. What? Though it's extremely hard to believe, let us imagine there was some misconduct during the autopsy. If that were the case, why would Azuki not have disputed the findings in his trial? In the closed court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zieks? Yes, that is indeed correct. Upon hearing the verdict of guilty, he merely closed his eyes, quietly accepting the judgment. The actions of a man who has accepted responsibility for his deeds and is resigned to his fate. But then... Oh my, that is very strange. If Mr. Azuki did nothing to oppose the charges against him, then that would surely mean there was no fabricated evidence. An obvious conclusion at which you should have arrived many minutes ago, Prosecutor Azuki. Your twisted loyalty and clouded judgment are hampering your ability for logical thought. Genshin Azuki's silence at his hearing can mean only one thing. There was no fabrication of evidence during the autopsy of his final victim 10 years ago. But if that autopsy was all above board, there'd be nothing to stop Lord Strongheart bringing this trial to an immediate conclusion.
Objection!